midterms gonna come, y'all gonna get wiped out. Trump gonna get dragged out of the White House, and I'm gonna love every second of it. Because y'all loved every second of the suffering that he caused to everybody in this country. And worldwide, we starve in Cuba. We bomb Nigeria. We hold in Zimbabwe and Zambia hostage for their minerals. We don't want to give them aid support. The pro-lifers that say all life is special, y'all letting kids die of AIDS. What part of your Bible say that? Point out the scripture. I think everybody would love to see it. And we would love to see y'all in the midterms. I have no doubt in my mind that the map's going to pass. If y'all can give us less than 0 seats, you would do it. Y'all do this under the orders of somebody that said the Civil Rights Act was harmful to white people, that it caused reverse racism. RFK said that black children are overfilled on antidepressants and that they need to be reparented on different forms. All of them. Pete Hegseth constantly brings Doug Wilson to the Pentagon to give a prayer service. Doug Wilson is the same pastor that said that slave owners were on strong spiritual ground. I don't have no belief in no morality on anybody that followed Donald Trump. If you wasn't with this map, you wouldn't be underneath this president. You wouldn't be in your party. You would stand up, you would stand against it, you would speak out about it. So as far as I'm concerned, if you here as one of these Trump Republicans, you already showed us who you are. You showed us what you want to do. And I believe the country as a whole is puking the party. Y'all are in a damn slump. That's why y'all have competition. That's why y'all have to cheat. That's why Trump got to go to Texas and say he's entitled to 5 more seats. It's because y'all know what y'all doing is abhorrent. We letting our people die in Iran based on false pretense that Tulsi Gabbard and Joe Kent say it ain't real. Y'all okay with all that. So I'm positive y'all gonna be okay with the match. But the beautiful thing is, the children that y'all have made and the people that's younger than y'all don't support none of this racism that y'all want. The MAGA party is the last breath of the Confederacy. And I'll be happy to see millennials and Gen Z bury y'all. There will be no more of your party. The midterms gonna come, y'all gonna get wiped out. Trump gonna get dragged out of the White House, and I'm gonna love every second of it. Because y'all loved every second of the suffering that he caused to everybody in this country. And worldwide, we starve in Cuba. We bomb Nigeria. We hold in Zimbabwe and Zambia hostage for their minerals. We don't want to give them aid support. The pro-lifers that say all life is special.
Frieza's not racist. Japanese Dub Frieza, not racist. English Dub Frieza, turbo racist.
So it's a translation difference, so to speak.
Yes, it is. Because in the Broly movie, everyone knows this clip. When he says, "Hello, monkeys," he never says that in Japanese. He has never called them monkeys in such a racial, undertone or anything. Never did it.
I disagree. Frieza is racist, and he's definitely referred to the Saiyans as monkeys with racial undertones in the original Japanese version. If you don't want Frieza to call you a monkey, hit that subscribe button, join ATW crew, and help us reach 1,000. Thank you. Sometimes Frieza calls the Saiyans Saru, and that translates to monkey, and that alone is racist. They aren't the monkey race, they're the Saiyan race. Now, yeah, the English dub definitely amps it up. It definitely is monkey. So, it's still racist, no matter what. That isn't racist, my friend. I don't know what to tell you. I'm Captain from ATW crew. Don't forget to subscribe. You guys keep doing that. And I'll see you next time.
Frieza's not racist. Japanese Dub Frieza, not racist. English Dub Frieza, turbo racist.
So it's a translation difference, so to speak.
Yes, it is. Because in the Broly movie, everyone knows this clip. He says, "Hello, monkeys." He never says that in Japanese. He has never called them monkeys in such a racial, undertone or anything. Never did it.
Disagree. Frieza is racist. He definitely referred to the Saiyans as monkeys with racial undertones in the original Japanese version. If you don't want Freeze to call you a monkey, hit that subscribe button, join AQW crew, and help us reach 1,000. Thank you. Sometimes Freeze calls the Saiyans. Sorry, that translates to monkey. That alone is racist. They're the monkey race. They're the Saiyan race. Now, yeah, the English dub definitely amps it up, but even in Japanese, calling them monkey, it's still racist no matter the case. That isn't racist, my friend. I don't know what to tell you. I'm Captain from AQW Crew. Don't forget to subscribe, guys.
Frieza's not racist. Japanese dub Frieza, not racist. English dub Frieza, turbo racist. So it's a translation difference, so to speak. Yes, it is. Because in the Broly movie, everyone knows this clip. When he says hello monkeys, he never says that in Japanese. He has never called them monkeys in such a racial anything. Never did it.
That is correct. Frieza is racist, and he's definitely referring to the Saiyans. If you don't want Frieza to call you a monkey, hit that subscribe button, join AQW crew, and help us reach 1,000. Thank you. Sometimes Frieza calls the Saiyans Saru, and that translates to monkey, and that alone is racist. They're not the monkey race, they're the Saiyan race. Now, yeah, the English dub definitely amps it up, but even in Japanese, calling them monkey Saru is still racist no matter the case. You want proof? That isn't racist, my friend. I don't know what to tell you. I'm Captain from AQW Crew. Don't forget to subscribe. You guys keep doing that. And see you next time.
Frieza's not racist. Japanese dub Frieza, not racist. English dub Frieza, turbo racist. So it's a translation difference, so to speak. Yes, it is. Because in the Broly movie, everyone knows this clip. He says hello monkeys. He never says that in Japanese. He has never called them monkeys in such a racial undertone or anything. Never did it.
That is correct. Frieza is racist, and he's definitely referred to the Saiyans as monkeys with racial undertones in the original Japanese version. If you don't want Frieza to call you a monkey, hit that subscribe button, join AQW crew, and help us reach 1,000. Thank you. Sometimes Frieza calls the Saiyans Saru, and that translates to monkey, and that alone is racist. They're not the monkey race, they're the Saiyan. Now, yeah, the English dub definitely amps it up, but even in Japanese, calling them monkey Saru is still racist no matter the case. You want proof? That isn't racist, my friend. I don't know what to tell you. I'm Captain from AQW Crew. Don't forget to subscribe. You guys keep doing that. And I'll see you next time.
Frieza's not racist. Japanese dub Frieza, not racist. English dub Frieza, turbo racist. So it's a translation difference, so to speak. Yes, it is. Because in the Broly movie, everyone knows this clip. When he says hello monkeys, he never says that in Japanese. He has never called them monkeys in such a racial undertone or anything. Never did it.
That is correct. Frieza is racist, and he's definitely referred to the Saiyans as monkeys with racial undertones in the original Japanese version. If you don't want Frieza to call you a monkey, hit that subscribe button, join AQW crew, and help us reach 1,000. Thank you. Sometimes Frieza calls the Saiyans Saru, and that translates to monkey, and that alone is racist. They're not the monkey race, they're the Saiyan race. Now, yeah, the English dub definitely amps it up, but even in Japanese, calling them monkey Saru is still racist no matter the case. You want proof? That isn't racist, my friend. I don't know what to tell you. I'm Captain from AQW Crew. Don't forget to subscribe. You guys keep doing that. And I'll see you next time.
Frieza's not racist. Japanese dub Frieza, not racist. English dub Frieza, turbo racist. So it's a translation difference, so to speak. Yes, it is.
There's no way to sugarcoat eliminating a district that is 61% black and breaking it up into 3 different districts. You are deliberately trying to silence the voices of a community. Tennessee is absolutely, showing the other states in this country, particularly the southern states, how quickly you can dismantle the black voice and the black vote in a community. It is a part of a long trend, really, to make voting more difficult from requiring state-issued IDs. We look at different Supreme Court cases from 2013, the Shelby v. Holder case, which got rid of pre-clearance, which really impacted southern states. And now you have Calais absolutely gutting Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, having to prove that a district is racist as opposed to it's actually just being racist and racially gerrymandered. Congressional districts are typically drawn in a compact way so that you have a community of interest so that their voices can be heard by their congressional member. So when you don't have someone who actually represents your area, when the people in that community are not allowed, and people say, well, you're not taking away their right to vote. No, you're not. What you're doing is you're making their vote not really count because you're diluting it so that there's no way that that community of black voters in Memphis can select a candidate of their choice. Memphis is a 64% black city. And when you sit in these chairs and you sign on the legislation, you present it and you vote for it, then that voice, you need to remember what you're doing. I think about the constituent who was born in 1934 and did not get the right to vote till 1962. This is the new Southern strategy to completely dilute and spread out black voters so that their voices do not matter and so that they do not have representation in Congress and they may not have representation in their state houses and their state senate. I'm telling you, this will be the greatest blow to black representation and black political power since the end of Reconstruction. There's no way to sugarcoat eliminating a district that is 61% black and breaking it up into 3 different districts. You are deliberately trying to silence the voices of a community. Tennessee is absolutely, showing the other states in this country, particularly the southern states, how quickly you can dismantle the black voice and the black vote in a community. It is a part of a long trend, really, to make voting more difficult from requiring state-issued IDs. We look at different Supreme Court cases from 2013, the Shelby v. Holder case, which got rid of pre-clearance, which really impacted southern states. And now you have Calais absolutely gutting Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, having to prove that a district is racist as opposed to it actually just being racist and racially gerrymandered. Congressional districts are typically drawn in a compact way so that you have a community of interest so that their voices can be heard by their congressional member. So when you don't have someone who actually represents your area, when the people in that community are not allowed, and people say, well, you're not taking away their right to vote. No, you're not. What you're doing is you're making their vote not really count because you're diluting it so that there's no way that that community of black voters in Memphis can select a candidate of their choice. Memphis is a 64% black city. And when you sit in these chairs and you sign on to legislation, you present it and you vote for it that will deliberately dilute that voice, you need to remember what you're doing. I think about someone like my grandmother, who was my proudest constituent before she passed, who was born in 1934 and did not get the right to vote till 1962. This is the new Southern strategy to completely dilute and spread out black voters so that their voices do not matter and so that they do not have representation in Congress and they may not have representation in their state houses and their state senate. I'm telling you, this will be the greatest blow to black representation and black political power since the end of Reconstruction. There's no way to sugarcoat eliminating a district that is 61% black and breaking it up into 3 different districts. You are deliberately trying to silence the voices of a community. Tennessee is absolutely, showing the other states in this country, particularly the southern states, how quickly you can dismantle the black voice and the black vote in a community. It is a part of a long trend, really, to make voting more difficult from, requiring state-issued IDs. We look at different Supreme Court cases from 2013, the Shelby v. Holder case, which, got rid of pre-clearance, which really impacted southern states. And now you have Calais absolutely gutting Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, having to prove that a district is racist as opposed to it actually just being racist and racially gerrymandered. Congressional districts are typically drawn in a compact way. So when you don't have someone who actually represents your area, when the people in that community are not allowed, and people say, well, you're not taking away their right to vote. No, you're not. What you're doing is you're making their vote not really count because you're diluting it so that there's no way that that community of black voters in Memphis can select a candidate of their choice. Memphis is a 64% black city. And when you sit in these chairs, you for it that will deliberately dilute that voice, you need to remember what you're doing. I think about someone like my grandmother, who was my proudest constituent before she passed, who was born in 1934 and did not get the right to vote till 1962. This is the new Southern strategy to completely dilute and spread so that their voices do not matter, and so that they do not have representation in Congress, and they may not have representation in their state houses and their state. Representation of black political power since the end of Reconstruction. Sugarcoat eliminating black and breaking it up into 3 different districts. Silence the voices of a community. Tennessee is absolutely, showing the other states in this country, particularly the southern states, how quickly you can dismantle the black voice and the black vote in a community. It is really to make voting more difficult from the Shelby v. Holder case, which is Calais, Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, having to prove that actually just being racist and racially gerrymandered. Congressional districts are typically drawn in a compact way so that you have a community of interest so that their voice is heard. So when you don't have someone who actually represents your area, when the people in the are not allowed and not really count because you're diluting it so that black voters in Memphis can select a candidate of their choice. And when you sit in these chairs and you sign on to legislation, you present it and you vote for it, that will deliberately dilute that voice, you need to remember what you're doing. I think about someone like my grandmother, who was my proudest constituent before she passed, who was born in 1934 and did not get the right to vote till 1962. This is the new Southern strategy to completely dilute and spread out black voters so that their voices do not matter, and so that they do not have representation in Congress, and they may not have representation in their state houses and their state senate. I'm telling you, this will be the greatest blow to black representation and black political power since the end of Reconstruction. There's no way to sugarcoat eliminating a district that is 61% black and breaking it up into 3 different districts. You are deliberately trying to silence the voices of a community. Tennessee is absolutely, showing the other states in this country, particularly the southern states, how quickly you can dismantle the black voice and the black vote in a community. It is a part of a long trend, really, to make voting more difficult from, requiring state-issued IDs. We look at different Supreme Court cases from 2013, the Shelby v. Holder case, which, got rid of pre-clearance, which really impacted southern states. And now you have Calais absolutely gutting Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, having to prove that a district is racist as opposed to it's actually just being racist and racially gerrymandered. Congressional districts are typically drawn in a compact way so that you have a community of interest so that their voices can be heard by their congressional member. So when you don't have someone who actually represents your area, when the people in that community are not allowed, and people say, well, you're not taking away their right to vote.
Trade options at Tasty Trade. You see your probability of profit and loss right where you need it. Switch to Tasty Trade and earn up to $3,000 in commission rebates. Donald Trump cut billions of dollars from federal programs that funded small farmers. The same program that we got our grant through is no longer funded, and we've just been left to the winds. I don't have anything to say to Donald Trump. There's nothing I can say that he would even listen to. He's going to look down on me like I'm a bug on the sidewalk or a piece of shit on his shoe. He doesn't care about people like me, you.
My family's farmed for 100 years. You don't want to be the one that can't keep it going. You know, I am a Republican. I voted for this administration, but my patience is running thin.
The closure of the Strait of Hormuz is causing prices to skyrocket. Things like diesel fuel and fertilizer.
We're buying a little bit at a time, and sometimes we know that we've only got 2 weeks of fuel. So what has happened to us is not just the impact of 1 year. We have lost customers forever. They will never come back because we're being an unreliable supplier.
I'm paying 60% more for diesel fuel than I would have been paying 45 days ago.
It affects us bad. You have no choice. You know, you've got to go ahead and buy it, no matter what the price is. There's going to be a lot of people that go out of business.
Farmers have already been struggling with rising costs and even tariffs making things even harder.
It's going to be delayed on the coffee for a number of farmers. It's just a straw that broke the camel's back.
Be patient.
Held Donald Trump back in November's election. And even in a state like Deep Blue, California, which, by the way, produces over half of the food we consume here in the United States, those farmers in California also supported Donald Trump. Now, because of the Electoral College, their votes really don't matter all that much, but these farmers said, by God, I want Donald Trump up there. And a month and a half later, these very same farmers, according to a new report from Politico, are basically wetting their pants in fear because, oh God, Donald Trump's going to deport half of our workforce. They're acting like they've just discovered this. Like this wasn't something that Donald Trump repeatedly said on the campaign trail, which he did. You know, again, I'll give Trump full credit for being fully honest about the tariffs and the deportations. He never sugarcoated it. I mean, he lied about, you know, how it was going to help us. It's not going to help us. But in terms of what he was going to do, he was honest. He was just dishonest about the why.
MAGA farmers don't vote for prosperity. Instead, many are now facing bankruptcy, crashing debt, rising fuel costs, expensive fertilizer, lost export markets, and losing land that's been in their families for generations. The same trade wars and policies that were promised would save America are now destroying livelihoods across America. So let's have a look, then I'll come back with more commentary, all right? Let's dive into it.
A lot of people effed around, and now they're finding out. And no group of people is going to find out more quickly than farmers, because they're really going to get screwed. With the cutting of this USAID program, you're really going to get hit hard. Is that program that is not that it's supposed to be, because Donald Trump control the federal government to the billionaire Elon Musk. Anyways, what was the purpose of that? The purpose was to provide humanitarian relief around the world. And what we did was purchase a lot of agricultural products produced by agriculture and then distribute. Now that money is being withheld, but it's being withheld, and farmers are not getting paid, and their products, their agricultural products, are no longer being paid by the federal government.
to settle their debts and pay bills. They're getting crushed by Trump. Because they can't markets China, Mexico, and Europe due to Trump's tariffs. And because of Trump's steel. They more to produce food they can't sell. And join us for more at culturalperspective.com, because this isn't random politics, it's cause and effect. The American political system creates a situation in which individuals with no experience, minimal education, and no specific knowledge can run for office. And at the same time, creates a situation in which the most popular person, not the best person, gets elected, and which those running for office can lie without consequence. So it's no surprise that America is in serious trouble. American farmers overwhelmingly voted for Trump. They didn't get what they voted for because Trump lied to them. Layoffs are already picking up pace in the farming industry. In just a matter of time, don't understand is why so many farmers are losing money. Were laid off directly because of Trump's lies and policies still support him.
But Trump says, the farmer's going to be better than ever. Well, you better hurry up.
So that's a guy named Franz Rowland, and he's been farming for 40 years in Georgia. This next thing he said that just completely...
We've lost our market share, our trade to China. I don't know who dropped the ball in Washington to allow these prices, its trade to diminish like it's...
This dude is a soybean farmer and has been for 40 years. It's his life. It's his business. And he has no idea, literally no idea why China won't buy our soybeans.
Picture this. You've got a big new website idea and your team is ready to go. Instead of taking months to build it, just use Framer. With Framer, designing is building. No handoffs, no waiting. Build your full website. Build landing pages. Build anything. Just bust seat.
Seriously. There's a 16-year-old kid somewhere scrubbing the bottom of a toilet in the back of a Hardee's that can tell you why China isn't buying our soybeans. How does a big-time soybean farmer not know that? And by the way, if you remember, they were supposed to start buying our soybeans again. They never did. They never did. Yeah, with that whole deal they made a few months ago where they fixed everything and they were like, okay, they're going to buy soybeans now. They still haven't bought any. I've talked a lot recently about how the billionaire influential class in this country is buying all the media, social media, TV stations, everything so they can completely control all the message. And that is exactly why a 40-year soybean farmer doesn't know why China isn't buying soybeans. Because he's not watching the news. He's watching the, I don't know, Trump propaganda network. And he doesn't know what he's watching. And he's literally trying to find anyone else in Washington, D.C. Donald Trump's trade war against China. And oh, by the way, China stopped buying our soybeans completely the first time Donald Trump was president because of a trade war. I have no idea how someone operates a business for 40 years and has absolutely no positive idea of how your business is impacted by policies, whether they're local, state, or federal. That's literally the most important thing you need to know. I don't know what it is about this guy. I really want to feel bad. If you're that irresponsible to not even know what is happening to your business, just close down. You have no business being a farmer. Just shut it down. Kansas farmers are operating Project 2025 now that Donald Trump's policies are directly affecting them. Specifically, the cuts to
Probably should have. It's not as if people weren't warning you. Kamala Harris went out every single day and warned Americans about Project 2025. But you believe the guy. He said, I know nothing about it. And now you're suffering. The worst part is, we're all suffering. There's hungry people around the world that are being affected by that. Find out phase. We're all here. It's the only thing that's cheap anymore. And enjoy.
Farmers and truck drivers and diesel is being forced into making tough decisions. Here in Iowa, this war continues to drag on, and they are being pushed in many cases to their very limits.
Year after year after year. And that's the scary part right now.
Many experts say that even if the war were to end immediately, many of the problems with elevated prices are going to last for weeks. When it comes to farmers in particular, that might already affect next year's
Right, why then there's less food for everybody in the
Because of the war in Iran, 1/4 of all farmers don't have the fertilizer they need for planting season right now, which means there's going to be potential interruptions to our food supply later this year. And this is on top of the fact that 46% of all farms filed for bankruptcy last year. They didn't have enough money. And that's on top of the fact that less than half of all farms are going to show a profit, which means more bankruptcies will come because they didn't make enough money to make ends meet. Do y'all understand that if these farms close and one company buys them all up, our food prices will go through the roof? There'll be no more competition. There'll be one company running it all, and everything will skyrocket, and we won't have a choice. There'll be no competition, so we can only buy our food from this one person if they own all the farms, and that's what they're trying to do. You know, farmers aren't struggling because of a hard job. They're struggling because somebody's trying to eradicate them, and that's the craziest thing, y'all. I don't think enough people are talking about this. What are we supposed to do when the cheapest food, like leafy greens and stuff, is $10? Because this is what the company wants to charge, because they run all the farms. We can't live like this.
I was making so much money with DoorDash. I wanted to earn money in my free time, but I didn't want to go out and get a boring 9 to 5. That's when I found out how much money my friend was making with DoorDash. There are opportunities in over 4,000 cities. Signing up was so easy. And before long, I was already making deliveries. Now, I get to make my own schedule and keep 100% of my tips. Download the DoorDash driver app and get started today.
J.D. Vance has founded a company called Acre Traders, where they buy failing farms and convert them into other things like parking garages, lots for like commercial projects and things like strip malls, all that craziness. It's any old thing. They can just do whatever they want. Why Vice President be a part of that? And now farmers are failing. Donald Trump and Elon cut all those programs that Biden put in place to try to help the farmers make more money, to try to help them make their farming more sustainable and stuff. They cut all those programs, and now all those farmers are left hope the bill. And I know y'all gonna be like, oh, they voted for this. I understand that. This is about me. This is about my food. I clearly like to eat. What am I? And I know I understand I need to lose weight, so let me get my vegetables then. I need my vegetables. I need my fresh fruit. We need that just to be healthy, and that's now questionable because Republicans are pushing for conglomerates. This is a real problem, and I'm hoping more people become privy to it and realize that they are playing in our faces. They have no intent of making life better. They only intend to make themselves richer. And it's a pretty scary thing, y'all. And again, I'm not trying to feel out there. This one is
prices. It's from a newly released survey of over 5,700 farmers conducted by the American Farm Bureau. The survey's biggest takeaway is that 7 out of 10 American farmers now say they cannot afford all of the fertilizer they need for this planting season. Why? Trump's war and the Strait of Hormuz closure. They have sent fertilizer prices through the roof. Because remember, a meaningful percentage of the world's fertilizer components travel through the Strait of Hormuz. Nitrogen fertilizer prices are up more than 30%. Urea, a key crop nutrient, is up 47% in just the last 2 months. It's the worst in the South. Nearly 80% of farmers there can't afford what they need. Y'all, farmers are already struggling under Trump's economy. Look at this. 94% of respondents reported their financial situation has worsened or remained the same since last year. Farmers can't afford fertilizer, they plant less. When they plant less, food supplies tighten and prices go up for everyone at the grocery store. This is not a warning from the future. This report just came out right now. And even if the strait does reopen soon, it's going to be too late for this planting season. Prices on day one.
Farming is one of the hardest jobs in America, given the good time. So when the government policies start hitting farmers at once, the damage becomes devastating. For years, China was one of the biggest buyers of American soybeans, and the farmers depended on that export, But when Trump launched aggressive tariffs and trade wars, China retaliated from buying from other countries like Argentina and Brazil instead. And once those supply chains are gone, they don't just magically come overnight. They might take years, Trade wars sound exciting during the campaigns, but in reality, tariffs often become taxes paid for by the people and the businesses. Farmers were caught up in an economic global fight that they couldn't control. Now they got no buyers to buy their crops. Prices have dropped. Profits have disappeared. Debt started piling up. And on top of that, the war in Iran is making the fertilizer more expensive and driving diesel prices even higher. Farmers rely heavily on diesel to run tractors, irrigation system, to harvest, and to transport crops. Now they are paying more to grow food that they can't even sell. And that's a financial nightmare for many. Farmers are not saying they are being forced to sell equipment just to survive. Some are taking more loans, Some are watching generational farms collapse after decades of family ownership. And sadly, some are even committing suicide. And you see, behind every suicide number is someone who felt abandoned or even overwhelmed. And this is why elections do matter. Choices made at the ballot box, they affect real life, They show up in groceries, fuel prices, and so on. And now many farmers they feel like they've been sacrificed politically, while the billionaires and the continue benefiting. And let's be honest, many MAGA voters voted are driven by emotion, identity, fear, and cultural resentment instead of policy. They could not vote for a female black president, And that's why many dismiss the warnings of the tariffs, trade wars, or economic instability because we're emotionally invested in the political identity Trump represented. But reality does not care about your political party, does not care about your political loyalty. Some thought they were voting to harm others, like the deportations, but eventually, harmful policies, they spread everywhere, and the consequences do not check your political party. The biggest lesson Americans are learning right now is that leadership matters, competence matters, and empathy matters, Choosing leaders should never be based purely on hate, anger, and culture wars. Because when the campaign rallies end, ordinary people are the ones left paying the price. So thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Have a good one. I'll see you in the next video.
This is getting hard. I'm gonna need some extra lives. We could have earned cash back for that? Wait, cash back for my game? I didn't know that was possible. Yeah. Free cash gives you cash back on in-game purchases. And even more if you complete challenges. Reach level 20 and earn $25? That's crazy. I'm already on level 50. I'm not playing for free anymore. With free cash, I play and I earn. Don't play for free. Play with free cash.
November
2023, a Manhattan courtroom, the closing phase of the largest civil fraud trial in American political history. Donald Trump walks into that courtroom and demands something no ordinary civil defendant is permitted to do: stand before the court and deliver his own closing statement in his own words. Judge Arthur Engoron sets a single condition, a standard condition: stick to the law and the evidence. Trump's lawyers refuse to commit to that in writing, and when the judge turns directly to Trump, asking him point blank, in front of every person in that room, Trump does not answer the question. What follows is not a debate, not a negotiation, not a recess. 4 words come down from the bench. That directive, recorded in official court transcripts, is where this story begins, and where American legal norms faced one of their most public stress tests in a generation. Here is what most coverage missed entirely. The confrontation inside that courtroom was not about Trump's guilt or innocence. What this moment exposed was a more precise and more consequential legal question, one that sits at the intersection of procedural law and political power. In American civil litigation, a defendant does not have an automatic right to deliver a closing statement. That is not a restriction targeting any individual. That is standard procedural architecture, applied uniformly across every civil courtroom in this country. The closing argument belongs to the attorney. That is what attorneys exist to do. So when Trump's legal team refused to guarantee that their client would follow that standard before he ever opened his mouth, they were signaling something that every officer of the court in that room understood immediately. They could not control what he was going to say. And they were not willing to stake their professional credibility on the possibility that he might stay within the boundaries the judge had set. That refusal created a procedural collision with implications extending well beyond this single trial. If you want to understand why that collision still matters in 2026, subscribe now, because what comes next is the part the headlines never explain. To understand what happened in that courtroom, you need to go back to where this case actually began. 2022. New York Attorney General Letitia James files a civil lawsuit against Donald Trump, the Trump Organization, and several of his adult children. The core allegation: systematic inflation of asset values and financial statements submitted to banks and insurers over a period of years. The figures cited in the complaint reach into the billions of dollars. This is not a criminal case, no jury, no potential prison sentence. What is at stake is the legal right to operate a business in the state of New York, and a financial penalty that prosecutors would ultimately seek in the hundreds of millions of dollars. October 2023. The trial begins. Judge Arthur Engoron presiding. He had already issued a summary judgment ruling before the trial opened, finding that fraud had occurred on the question of falsified business records. The trial itself is focused on determining the scope of penalties and the liability of individual defendants. The stakes for Trump are not abstract. His entire public identity is built on a self-made billionaire whose business reflects his personal genius. This trial puts that claim directly under judicial examination. November 2023. Trump's legal team makes a request. They ask the judge to permit Trump to address the court personally. Judge Engoron does not reject the request outright. He sets a condition. The statement must be confined to the law and the evidence. No political grievances. No material outside the record. Trump's attorneys decline to commit to that condition. The judge denies the request. Attorney Christopher Kisey raises the request a second time. The judge turns directly to Trump and asks whether he will follow standard courtroom guidelines. Trump begins speaking. He does not answer the question. Within minutes, Judge Engoron issues the directive recorded in the official transcript. 1 minute remaining, then the gavel, then silence. Trump does not return for the afternoon session. He holds a press conference nearby instead. That sequence from request to refusal to shut down to press conference takes less than 1 afternoon to complete. Its legal and institutional implications are still unfolding. The transcript tells you what was said. The footage tells you something else entirely. Watch Trump enter that courtroom, the jaw set. The deliberate, unhurried pace. The camera glare that communicates one thing from something else. This is a man who has decided before a does not have authority over him. That posture matters. participant, defendant, attorney, witness signals that they accept the authority of the institution. That signal does not require words. It is communicated in how you sit, how you respond, and impress. Then comes the moment that changes everything. Standing before a sitting judge, exercising the full procedural authority of the state of New York, Trump says the words that are now part of the official record of this proceeding. Pause on that for a moment. Not as political commentary, as procedural analysis. That sentence is directed at the one person in that room whose institutional role is to determine outcomes. It is not frustration. It is not rhetorical flourish. Legal analysts who reviewed the transcript described it as a direct challenge to judicial authority delivered in the language of casual dismissal. Judge Engoron's response is immediate and entirely procedural. He does not engage with the substance. He does not debate. He turns to me and delivers 4 words. Attorney Alina Habba speaks afterward outside the courthouse, describing the session as unacceptable. That statement itself becomes part of the public record of the day. 2 people. Two entirely different interpretations of what institutional authority means inside an American courtroom. What happened after that gavel came down depends entirely on which lens. From the perspective of legal observers who supported the court's handling of the session, the response represented the institutional architecture of American law functioning precisely as designed. The directive to control the defendant, the 1-minute limit, the recess. None of these tools are extraordinary. They exist in every courtroom in this country. The argument from this side is straightforward. Procedural rules are not negotiable based on the prominence of the defendant. The moment they become negotiable, they cease to function as rules at all. From the perspective of Trump's legal team and his political supporters, the framing is fundamentally different. Their argument centers on a claim that deserves to be examined on its own terms, that the judge had issued a summary judgment finding fraud before the trial even began, and that this sequence raised legitimate questions about whether the adjudicative process allowed for a genuinely open examination of the evidence. Several legal commentators, including those with no political alignment to Trump, noted that the pretrial ruling was procedurally unusual and worth scrutiny. From the perspective of independent legal scholars, the most significant detail of the entire session is neither Trump's remarks nor the judge's response. It is the moment Trump's attorneys refuse to commit to standard courtroom guidelines on behalf of their client. Legal ethics require attorneys to be candid with the court and to manage client conduct within proceedings. When attorneys signal in advance that they cannot guarantee compliance, it raises questions about the boundaries of professional obligation that extend well beyond this particular case. 3 perspectives, 3 legitimate analytical frameworks. None of them require you to assign villain status to any individual participant. The procedural record is what it is. What you make of it depends on which principle you place at the center: judicial authority, defendant rights, or attorney accountability. All 3 are worth your attention. Here is where the timeline becomes critical, because we are no longer analyzing a historical curiosity. It is May 2026. Donald Trump is the sitting president of the United States, currently serving his 2nd term, and the civil fraud judgment issued by the state approximately $364 million, including accumulated interest, is actively moving through the appellate process. That combination has no direct precedent in American legal history. A sitting president, a state-level civil judgment, an active appeal, and a political environment in which every procedural development carries institutional weight far beyond the courtroom where it originates. 3 scenarios are currently on the table. This outcome is legally possible. Trump's legal team has argued that the calculation of if the appellate division department agrees even partially, it sets a precedent affecting how New York courts calculate penalties in complex civil fraud cases going forward. The legal infrastructure changes, not just for Trump, but for comparable proceedings. That legal scholars are the mechanisms for collecting operating across multiple states and jurisdictions are not clearly defined. What happens when the institutional tools designed
Oh, someone's here. That's weird.
encounter a defendant who is simultaneously the head of the executive branch? That question does not yet have a clean legal answer. Considered unlikely by most analysts, but not impossible. If the appellate process produces outcomes that one political coalition regards as institutionally threatening, the pressure to respond through legislation increases. That pathway would bring the judicial and legislative branches into direct tension over the boundaries of state court authority. 3 indicators worth tracking right now: the appellate hearing schedule in New York, any formal Justice Department position on the intersection of presidential status and civil liability, and whether Congress moves to address the enforcement gap that Scenario B exposes. The courtroom session lasted 1 afternoon. The legal consequences are measured in years. Here is the question this entire case ultimately comes down to. When any defendant refuses to accept the procedural conditions that every other defendant in every other courtroom is required to follow, does the institution have sufficient tools to enforce compliance? And when that defendant simultaneously holds the highest elected office in the country, does the answer to that question change? Those are not political questions. They are structural ones, and they do not have settled answers. So tell me where you stand. In the comments below, which side of this procedural argument do you find more legally defensible? The court's authority to impose conditions, or the defendant's right to challenge them?
Sensitive skin needs a solid defense, lightweight and fast absorbing. Nivea Men's Sensitive Face Lotion with SPF gives you all-day moisture with sun protection, so your skin game stays on point. Try now.
Oh, yeah, I apologize for being late, but you know I had to cook it up. As I'm covering One Piece episodes 1160 and 1161, and you know these episodes is fine. You know a calm little 2 episodes, so in turn this is a calm little vid, but pure heat nonetheless. So with that, if you can do your captain a favor and drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, that'll be greatly appreciated. You're a real one. Now grab your golden Oreos and remember that. Now on with the heat. So they appreciate them trying to help us. So the game so he came to the conclusion that they possibly washed ashore on some island. So with that, the gang they will wait for them at Elbaf. And speaking of Elbaf, to come with them of his own free will. Now the gang the mountains are, which Nami's like the mountains are bigger than islands. Not gonna lie, One Piece's scaling is absolutely insane. And Usopp pointed out the long suspension bridge that reaches the getting ready to slide, 2 giants were walking in their direction from the bridge. So they took cover as the giants were walking and speaking on how Hydra brought a weirdo in.
Final.
Is the cook of the new giant warrior pirate. They saw the crew carrying the small ship. Goldberg started laughing like, I don't think they'll once they catch him red-handed and report. After hearing the giants' conversation, they confirmed his suspicion on them being in Elbaf. Tried to get the giants' attention, but Nami had to put a stop to him. Now this is why I unlocked my future sight, because I saw this coming ahead.
Final.
And with that, the Giants took their lead, so the gang makes their way on the bridge, which is so large that they have to jump over the gaps in between it. There are also Luffy thinks it's the one who roared when they were in Block Kingdom, so he tells the gang to go on ahead as he jumps off the bridge to see what's up. Meanwhile, back on the boat, Robin is ready to the hell out of the event. Years, Nori and Brogy, along with the Emperor of the Sea, reference from Big News Morgan. Nori and Brogy's bounty shot up to 1.8 billion berries each, as it was originally 100 which completely different now from 100 years ago. So that's a fair Newspaper also states that talking about some he murdered me until Frankie heated up at her defending his captain, telling Lilith to shut up because my nigga Frankie's a W man's for real. Captain, you better respect the big home. And be moving different. And as Robin continues to read next on his arm when he alternate name for Gear 5 Luffy. And can we just appreciate how fine Robin is with glasses? Like she was already a 10 out of 10, but now she broke the scale. Also, I peeped the drip change. Straight perfection. But this the first the gang ever noticed since Luffy's always moved